Hey everybody. Can we hear it for this artist one more time, please? I wanted to just ask, and it seems appropriate to the subject matter of this film. Are we going to record this conversation? Is anybody recording this?
If we keep it brief, we can put it all on a ceramic tablet.
Okay. I'm going to take that as a no, and I'm going to just record it because I want to have a recording the first time this is the second time I've had a conversation with you, Ian. This is the first time I've ever had the pleasure to meet you, Mr. Herzog, so I want a recording of it, actually. All right, I thought I'd start with something that occurred to me when watching this film. It has to do with like what you leave behind, just a little pop quiz icebreaker. Ian, Werner, when you die, do you want to be buried or cremated or something else, and why?
I don't have any opinion on that. Let it happen as it happens.
Okay.
I found the Mississippi Delta speech very convincing.
So you want to be buried somewhere where you'll become a fossil?
I mean, maybe unconvincing that anyone would actually find him.
Yeah.
But, or maybe a good joke would be, we went to the La Brea tar pits this morning, my son and I, and all the bones are entangled. And so you get like the stratigraphy of time sometimes compressed into just a jumble. And they have to sort of disentangle these creatures from different. So a good joke would be, to bury me with like some dinosaur bones and I don't know, a robot. Just make it interesting for future archaeologists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your opening limerick talks about being present, and that's the thing that my mind kept going back to when I was watching this, was if you're focused a lot on what you leave behind, on what the future might make of you, does that distract you from being present? I'm curious how often you or either one of you think about this, or what you do to remain present, or whether you consider that a valuable thing to try to remain.
Well, I don't care so much about posterity because I won't be around anymore. So what? Let it happen. What's happening in the future? And when I look at my own life, the work that I've done, I always had the feeling, yes, it was like walking along the beach, and then later the waves will come and you leave some tracks in the sand and they will be washed away very quickly. It's very ephemeral what we are doing, and the universe cannot care less about what we are doing here and what we did and how we did it. Nobody out there, the universe, nature doesn't care about this. So I feel at ease knowing that.
Mm-hmm. So does that mean that because when I'm trying to make decisions sometimes about what to do, whether personally or professionally, creatively, I often feel like I'm sort of deciding back and forth between, am I going to enjoy doing this, the process in the present, and is what I've done gonna matter later? Am I gonna do this movie? Am I gonna enjoy making the movie? But also, is the movie gonna be good? Am I going to like it later, or are people going to like it later? Do you guys, how much do you think about that when you're making decisions, again, either in your personal life or in your professional creative life? Where do you weigh? It sounds like what you're saying is, I don't care that much about posterity. So then, is what you prioritize the experience itself of?
No, come on, there's always this kind of bullshit going around that you have to explore your boundaries and all these things. And do you enjoy it, or do you lead a happy life? It's very strange about Americans. They're very much after happiness. It's even in their constitution, in the preamble, the pursuit of happiness, a very odd thing, in my opinion. So you see whether you are happy when you're making a film. Yeah, okay, that's good for you if shooting goes well and you form friendships and the food was good. And that's all fine, but ultimately, this is very ephemeral. What lasts a little longer is what you have, what you show on the screen. Sure, of course I care what I'm doing, of course, but in a limited span of time. So I'm not squint-eyed, and I'm not looking for some sort of weird eternity. It doesn't occur to me, it doesn't interest me. But what interests me much more, for example, is while I'm around, while I do my things, that I try to lift up other people along with me, make things visible through them as I am trying to make things visible. And this is how I came across Ian, because to make it very brief, I have been advisor to Sandbox Films, a very intelligent and generous construction of assisting filmmakers. And I always said I'd like to participate in something where you have documentaries, for example, that depart from what I can't take that much longer anymore, where you have documentaries as part of journalism. And I always said we have to divorce ourselves from journalism. And journalism mostly means the issue films, that you have an issue, and then at the end, and I even heard it quite recently, a documentary, for example, has to have redemption, closure, and hope. Oh my goodness, no, not so. Just let there be something else. It's this kind of attitude of social issues which I do not like. And I stumbled into Ian's project, and I found it magnificent, and I found the way he tackled it absolutely wonderful, the kind of humanity that exudes from everyone that you are filming. It's a special quality that's outside of journalism. It has to do with poetry in a way, new forms of narration. Wonderful, you do that, and I'm very proud, and I'm proud of you, and I'm proud that I had some little bit assistance in this film. My assistance was limited. I tried to give courage to the man next to me. Go wild, do it as it has to be done. And here we have a wonderful film.
Yes.
And I like it much better than what you see in the Academy Award nominations for documentaries. But they have a different agendas, different life, different aesthetics, different whatever. That's the industry. And nothing wrong, by the way, nothing wrong about the industry, because it has given us Fred Astaire, for example.
Here. What about you, Ian? I mean, when I'm watching this, it feels to me like I'm definitely watching an artist who is very much immersed in and enjoying the process of making this film, but also clearly making something that is a beautiful work of art in the end. How do you balance that kind of process versus product?
You know, at the risk of getting my physics wrong, I remember talking to a physicist about this topic once, and then pointing out that, you know, there really is no present. That, you know, anything we experience is already sort of in the past. So that's point number one. which is sort of annoying.
I think you have to say a bit more about that for us to understand what you mean.
Well, like you can't stop time, and you can't freeze time. You can't. Already the words that I'm hearing myself say are in the past, and so in that sense, and maybe this is I quibble, right? I mean, this is like, well, that's not really what we're talking about, but it's kind of an interesting data point along the way.
Okay.
To figure out how we exist in the universe. The other point was is lost to memory while I was saying the first point.
Oh, sorry. What we were talking about, because the movie's about what you leave behind, and where my mind keeps going is like, if you're focused on what you leave behind, are you then?
Yeah, the other point was just that, like, one of the most amazing things that our minds can do is time travel. Is that we can spring back in time. So this idea that we mustn't spend our time remembering the past or caring about the future, in some sense is nonsensical, or it's to ignore what is so marvelous about the brain. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing that we can exist in the sort of present and yet be reminded through our senses, through our conversations, of things that have happened in very different places, in very different contexts. And I tried to nod to this, to sort of the joy of this, and the whimsy of it, and the unexpectedness of it in the film, through this sort of hokey device of carrying along this little television wherever we went, which is just my way of saying, of kind of reminding us all that that's sort of how memory works. It's often sparked by landscape and by experiences and so forth. So I kind of love the idea that the present is entangled in the past and the future.
Yeah, but Ian, you pointed out just before the sentence that I just spoke is already past, and my next sentence is future. It points out to a basic fiction in which we are living, as if something like present time existed. Yeah. It does not. Technically, present time does not exist. There's only past and there's only future. And there's no present time. What we consider as present time, we are in February and it's 2024, and spring is just starting, as if it was present. And it doesn't exist, we know that. Well, hardly anyone notices it, meaning we live in a fiction. We create a fiction, otherwise life that has no presence, present time, would be pretty much unlivable. And that's the beauty of how we are shaping a fiction around us in many ways. And memory itself becomes fictitious to some degree. If we could not mold our memories, probably life would be very ugly and unlivable. It's a blessing that we modify and forge our own memories sometimes. Yeah. It's the beauty of memory. And
but forge is a very active verb, and I think the revelation for me that just as the bat guano is piling up as this unintentional archive, we don't really control what our minds store.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the sort of this vain attempt to try and figure out what our legacy will be, we have to confront yet again that we're not in control of our own legacy any more than we're in control of our own memories.
Yeah.
So.
What I really love is, I want to bring the conversation back to the film itself. The intelligence of narration, the joy of narration. There's just a wild joy of telling the story. And it does not matter how many phases of doubt you had, how many phases of modifying it and re-editing things you had. It all does not count anymore. What comes across is is this joy of wild storytelling, and it's all very, very intelligent, what you are saying, and very intelligent and very unusual what you are looking at. So when we speak about memory, everybody would immediately start filming in a library. And you go to Chinguetti in Mauritania, where a library is taken away by sun, dust, and critters. And it's a wonderful, wonderful past of great early times of Islam. And that's the only moment where you go into a library. The scope and the facets of fascinations that you have and that you show us is just extraordinary and full of mysteries. It struck me because I had seen it before in Svalbard. I think is it a walrus that emerges and looks at you, and you have the intelligence, and you have, as a filmmaker, and you have the guts to hold this shot for a very, very long time. Yeah. And I look at this creature and it looks at me, and what the hell is that guy thinking? I keep thinking about whole novels when I look at the face of that and into the eyes. And you have that kind of a quality that's real filmmaking, real poetry. So I'm here to congratulate you.
You're here.
This is my kind of